This is the Ted Wallison Podcast. Brought to you by Halenda's, the meat people. Enjoy their award-winning products at selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortino's, and Foodland locations. Halenda's, the way sausage should taste. And Tom's Place. For the finest in men's clothing at unbeatable prices, it's Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. Tom's Place will suit you. And now, here's Ted Wallison.
My guests this week are one of three sets of renovators featured in HGTV's Hoarder House Flippers, which airs Thursdays at 8 p.m. Welcome, Ryan and Kiki.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. This is great.
So you're a team here. You, Kiki, you're the designer, right? Ryan,
right.
you're the contractor. Is that basically the way it breaks down?
Yeah, that's basically how it shakes out. Yeah.
Okay, but you're also a married couple, and you have been for 7 or 8 years now.
We have been, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going on 9.
You think? I mean, you're not sure whether you want to, or you think that's what it is chronically.
I'm pretty sure. Honestly,
okay.
We stopped counting.
A lot of math.
Okay,
A lot of math.
What came first, the marriage or the professional relationship, or they sort of happen simultaneously?
Oh, definitely the relationship, not the professional relationship, but just the relationship definitely came first before TV or construction or any of that. We met in university
At 19.
At 19, so we've been together like 15, 16 some odd years. Long time.
Yeah.
Wow, you're old.
Yeah.
This is an interesting concept, and I'm fascinated with so many of these different design, build, renovate, flip kind of shows, even though I'm useless at that kind of stuff personally, which is really weird. But I'm fascinated watching them. I love watching the premiere episodes that they sent me. And I wondered to myself two things. Number one, what is the definition in your mind of a hoarder house?
So in my opinion, a hoarder house is something that's packed full of stuff, right? It's typically a home. It's got lots of extra belongings, more so than you would conventionally use on a day-to-day basis. And those are the types of houses that we end up acquiring for this show. We clean them out, we make them beautiful again. We do all kinds of things to bring that character back, because a house at one time was not a hoarder house. It was more than likely a lovely home, and we take it back to the way that it was.
Right. Now, and you've been doing this for years, and not all the homes that you've flipped have been hoarder homes, but you are doing that now for the benefit of HGTV, who came to you with this concept. How many homes have you flipped in your career?
Over 60.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you mind if I ask you what's the best you've ever done financially on any particular home?
Oh, Ted, oh my goodness. We've done real well, honestly. Over the years, we've done really, really well. The market's always been in our favor, which is, for the most part, our market's always been in our favor. And I think that if you buy right and you renovate right, you resell right. And I mean, I think the biggest thing here is being able to speak, I call it 4 languages. It's real estate, construction, finance, and design. And I try to touch on all 4. Keith touches more so on the design side, because I couldn't pick a bath mat, frankly, but she's really good at that. And she draws the emotion out of the buyers, which is exactly what we need.
Mm-hmm. So suffice to say that it's worthwhile for you to spend the time and effort and the risk, putting the risk in to make this a viable career for yourself. But during the course of those 60 homes, have you ever lost money?
We haven't, actually.
No,
we haven't.
And I will say that's kudos to Ryan on that, because there have been times where it almost happened, and he finds some way to turn it around. Like there was a house where there was a potential huge loss, and he decided, you know what, if I build a carriage house at the back of this property, I can increase this property by double instead of losing half of it. So that's where Ryan comes in with the numbers and the math and the business sense. So yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense to me. There are some people who believe that flipping houses is one of the reasons why prices of homes in this country are so exorbitant. What do you think?
I disagree. I wholeheartedly disagree. I mean, I think that when somebody buys a house, whether it's your average, we'll just talk about single family homes, but like whether it's your average finished single family home, whether it's a fixer upper, or whether it's already beautiful when you buy it, like people that buy the entry level home, whether it's a flipper that's going to buy the lumber and the wood and the lumber and the flooring and the paint and all that stuff to fix it up and then put it back on the market as a nicer product, or whether somebody already buys that nicer product and nobody fixed it up. It was kind of done evenings and weekends. The point is that house got fixed to look beautiful, and whether somebody did it for profit or a homeowner did it under their own volition and then turned around and sold it later, like either way, that house is still getting fixed. So I don't believe that flippers are quote unquote running the market up, right? Mm-hmm. They're creating jobs, which I think is great. They're supporting the hardware stores locally, which I think is great. Yeah. Obviously, real estate agents are a huge part of the GDP. I think that's hooey.
Also,
I don't believe it.
I would also say that the market is what dictates that specifically, because flippers are putting risk in, and if the market changes, well, they lose just like anybody else does, right? So
sure,
I'd say it's the market that dictates it more than the flippers.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Ryan and Kiki are my guests. They are renovators. They're one of 3 sets of renovators who will be featured on HGTV's Hoarder House Flippers, which you can watch Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. Who finds the property initially for you?
We do. We do, yeah. It's very much part of the business model. I mean, being part of the HGTV family has been a really unique experience in terms of finding properties. Obviously, you have to find properties that fit the box in terms of something that's worthy to be filmed, right? And flipping as a business versus flipping for something that is going to be recorded in this regard, it's a little bit different. But generally speaking, we find the properties, we go in, we do all the construction, and it's the real deal.
Are there limits to what project you will take on? Like, for example, if someone comes to you, or if you find this property and you say, hey, listen, this looks like we could make some money, but by the way, somebody was murdered in this home.
Every house has a story, Ted. That's what I can say.
Yeah, well, I know, but some of them, because and I'm not sure what the rules are legally, whether you have to tell the potential buyers, by the way, somebody was axed to death in this place.
Yeah. So, I mean, if it was like a high profile murder case or something, as you mentioned, yes, there is an obligation to tell the buyers. There is.
Okay.
If somebody died of natural causes, not so. Like if somebody had a heart attack or fell down the stairs or something.
Sure.
I've had properties like that. Somebody passed away. The family doesn't want to have the emotional instability associated with that property because it's triggering for them. And if I can go in there and respect that and honor the way that the house maybe once was, and we can go in and we can focus strictly on the real estate, unless they're so on the emotional side of it, then I'm all for doing that deal.
As a buyer, I don't know whether I would buy a house where something like that occurred. I don't think I could.
Yeah. And that's totally fair. And that's why when things like that happen, you do have to disclose. And I mean, I think it is only reasonable that you tell somebody, hey, this is the history of the house. If it was, I've done houses that have been burnt or that have been, very challenging public situations. And in some cases you do have to very much disclose and tell people, hey, this is what you're getting. This is what it is. Maybe this is why it sells for less money because it has a stigma in the neighborhood. Maybe it's not a big deal at all and nobody cares, but at least you offer this to the buyer.
Ryan and Kiki are one of 3 sets of renovators on Hoarder House Flippers. I got to take that one slowly. Hoarder House Flippers, which is on HGTV Thursdays at 8 p.m. There's a certain amount of curiosity within all of us, and the concept of discovering something really new and interesting is quite fascinating. But there's also that fear that goes with it as well. It's like, what if I lift this board? I don't know what I'm going to find under here. And then let's take the dead bodies out of the equation here. But
where are you shopping for houses, Ted? My God.
No, I'm not. I'm not shopping for houses, but you know yourself. I mean, if somebody leaves a house in disrepair like that, the odds are animals have been there if they're not still there now.
Yeah,
I think we go in more excited. Right? And anticipating finding treasures or discovering something unique, or just, I think we go in with positive and excited, ways of thinking. And then sometimes there's surprises that we find along the way, like animals. And, the viewers can come along on that journey with us.
Well, because you do. I mean, listen, everybody at one point or another, I don't care where you live, you've had mice in your house, right? And it just happens, right? So
Yep.
you discover those kinds of things. But more interestingly is you will discover things, and now you have to decide between the two of you, okay, is this garbage? Is it antique? Is it an antique? Is it a collectible? Or is it recyclable? Meaning, do I keep it, or do we throw it away, or do we sell it? That's a tough call sometimes.
We do bounce into that on the show frequently, actually. So when you go into a house that's had, let's just say a collection of items for 30, 40 years, who knows how long, right? You acquire things over time and they get put in the back of closets and forgotten about. And you'll see in some of these episodes that we do genuinely find treasures, and we do genuinely find stuff that can be recycled or donated or given away. And we do also find stuff that's just seen the end of its life and it's just time to go. So, I mean, are there dumpsters involved? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some stuff you just can't either economically or rationally say, yes, this can be saved. On the flip side, we find some great stuff.
Well, I was just going to say, when you talk about dumpsters in the first episode, you have a wager with the guys who bring the dumpsters to the house. I don't want to give it away. It's kind of an interesting wager I've never heard before. Which I thought was kind of fascinating. What's the most fascinating thing that you found that you've either kept for yourself, donated, or sold as an antique?
Oh, gosh, I always like tools and equipment, machinery. I think that's kind of fun, just being in the nature of the business that I'm in. I also like historic artifacts. So I won't give anything away in any of the episodes, but historic artifacts always have. Sometimes it's a financial incentive, and sometimes it's just the emotional connection to finding something old that you're interested in. Surveys are something really neat that we found that I love. It tells a story of when that house was born. It tells the story of maybe when it was farmland way back when, or even before that. So I really like finding old surveys and statistical items.
We love anything that has history for sure.
Yeah.
So anything that tells a story in that capacity, we love.
But over the 60 houses that you flipped over the years, there must have been some things that you found that you thought, this is a great treasure for whatever reason, whether it's financially or whether it's a personal thing that you've kept. Can you share some of those stories? Not necessarily from the show itself.
Yeah, sure. Just like in general. So like we found war medals before. We found, surveys and stuff like I had mentioned. What else have we found?
And honestly, sometimes usable items like industrial steamers. I would love an industrial steamer that costs hundreds of dollars. And, sometimes it's usable stuff that I wouldn't go out and buy, but I'm like, hey, now we own this and now I can use it every day.
Yeah. I found this little model car figurine. I like cars and vehicles and working with my hands and stuff. And antique cars is something that I'm interested in. And I found this really neat figurine that we looked it up on eBay. Actually, and I thought it was, I thought it was probably just nothing. It was like one of these little wind-up stamped steel figurines, and it was a little guy sitting on a motorcycle. So we looked it up on eBay, and it was like $350. So stuff like that's kind of neat. I'll keep it and put that in a memorabilia cabinet somewhere. And every time I think of that, that item, I'll think of all the stuff that we've done together.
Well, and the great thing is when you find some of these kinds of things, you think to yourself, okay, well, we purchased the house for this much, we've budgeted this much, and this is what we're aiming for a profit. Now, all of a suddenly, well, wait a minute, this is worth a couple $1,000s, that's going to cut down our costs. This is worth a couple $100, that's going to cut down our costs. Conversely, you run into things like running into mold or asbestos or stuff that's not done to code, like railings or and you get so many DIY people over the years who don't know a thing about plumbing or electronics or electricity, and they decide they're going to do their own electrical work.
Yeah, it happens a lot. You find all kinds of stuff like this.
And then we have...
Yeah.
Ted Wallachin returns in a moment.
Hey, let me take a moment to tell you about my friends at Helenda's. They are the meat people. I've been a fan of their products for years now, and without a doubt, they make some of the best sausage in Ontario. They are multiple award winners, having captured the Ontario's Finest Meat Competition's coveted Award of Excellence on 3 occasions, in addition to dozens of individual product awards. Helenda's has also received the Grand Champion ribbon at the past 2 Royal Winter Fair's ready-to-eat meat snack competitions. So whether you're preparing a charcuterie board or a full-blown sit-down dinner for your friends or family, you'll find Helenda's award-winning products at fine meat shops throughout the province, now including selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortinos, and Foodland stores, along with their 7 Halendas locations. Their barbecued kielbasa is my favorite. On a fresh bun with horseradish, it is out of this world. But don't just take my word for it. Judge for yourself. On your barbecue, in your kitchen, or straight from the refrigerator. Halendas, the way sausage should taste. And as usual, off we go to 190 Baldwin, the home of Tom's Place. It's in the heart of Kensington Market. We've been talking for a little bit, Tom, about the wedding season upon us. And I harken back I think it's 8 years now since my daughter got married. And I remember bringing in my son and my son-in-law, future son-in-law at the time. And everybody decided that as opposed to getting tuxedos, all of the bridegrooms were going to get really nice dark suits with matching ties so that after the wedding, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, they could continue to wear those suits. And they looked fabulous. Now, not to say that you shouldn't get a tuxedo, because you've got some terrific tuxedos, which I have too. So either one works. But if you're thinking, well, do I want a tux and how often am I going to wear it? Maybe the suit, it works best.
Ted, that's a very good observation, and you did the right thing. And it's very common where people come into our store with the groom and the groomsmen, and they're buying fabulous, fantastic suits. And you're going to get much more wear out of a suit than of a tuxedo. Exactly correct. So please come to Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin Street. Great storytelling, Ted. I always love how you tell the stories.
I tell them from my heart. 190 Baldwin, the heart of Kensington Market. That's where you'll find my friend Tom and Tom's Place.
Now back to Ted Wallachin.
We're talking to Ryan and Kiki. They are one of 3 sets of hosts of renovators, at least. Hosts and renovators of Hoarder House Flippers, which is on HGTV Thursdays at 8 p.m. Let's take it in order of how things happen. You find a house. Generally, you find it. You look at it, you examine it, and you say, okay, this looks like it could be worth it. First thing you do is you have to clear the place out. You bring in the guys with the big trucks and all of the other staff that you need and assistants that you need. You clear it out. Then you start having to work to discover what needs to be repaired. Is that about the order of the way it goes so far?
Yeah, so we basically, as it's getting cleaned out, we have to make very quick decisions about what we're keeping, what's being recycled, donated, thrown out. We have to do it fast because time is money and we have a job to do. And then once it's cleared out, we can actually see what's going on and take the first steps into deciding what we're going to do aesthetically with the house.
And that's where you come in with your design ideas. And where did your design, do you have a background in design? Did you go to school for that?
No, I have no formal training at all. I have a hard time calling myself a formal designer. I feel like I'm more of a flipper that likes to design and be creative. And so I'm a very creative person. So I just use that and have fun with it. We like to tell the story of the house and the neighborhood. So we try to change it every time. We like to have fun with it. Pick colors or go neutral. It really depends what the market wants, what the neighborhood wants. We want to blend in, but also stand out. It's fun.
And while you're designing these the homes of the way they're going to look in the future, you have to keep your eye on what the current trends are the way the trends are going. For example, now the open concept is huge in homes today, more so than it was 20 or 30 years ago. That's something that you're constantly aware of?
Yes, definitely paying attention. Definitely paying attention to trends is important. There's also a part of us that like to be ahead of the trends. And so Ryan and I are actually more fans of closed concept because we know a lot of people are working from home now. And we know that that's going to be a trend that's going to be really important, where people actually don't want everyone on top of each other in one big room. Compartmentalizing the house is actually going to become more and more important. So we also like to be ahead of trends or see them coming. So that's sort of one of them that we focus on.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was going to be my next question. Because of the effects that COVID had, and with people staying away, losing their jobs, unfortunately, in some cases, and in other cases, many cases, beginning the concept of working from home, that now changes the whole design mentality for a lot of people in their homes.
Yeah, we like to design more of a lifestyle based. So it depends on the neighborhood and where they are, or if there's a big yard or a little yard, or the way that the house is laid out. The design really features the lifestyle that the potential buyers can have in that space. And so if we think that, this could be an entertaining house, then we design with that in mind. Or if we think this will be a family house, then we design with that in mind.
And so the final stage is, in fact, staging. You bring somebody in, you work with stagers, in particular, people you work with?
Sometimes we work with stagers because it's faster and more efficient. And then sometimes I like to be the one to do it because I have a specific design in mind, and I know that only I can find it because I like a lot of vintage, and stagers usually stage with a lot of new. So it's actually difficult to find stagers that have the vintage pieces that I'm looking for. So sometimes we go modern, sometimes we go vintage, and sometimes I'm way more involved. Like these 2 episodes, I'm a lot more involved because I like to look a more traditional way. And so viewers will be able to see everything in there is really thoughtfully curated.
Mm-hmm. And in many cases, people watch programs about homes, such as your program, don't realize that what they see, the end result, isn't necessarily what the people get, because a lot of that is furniture that has been staged specifically for television, that once they move into that house or back to that house, that's not going to be the furniture they're going to be living on.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes that's the case. I mean, sometimes some of the furniture does stay with the house. Sometimes it does not. It really depends on the offer, what is stagers, what is stuff that we've bought for the episode that does belong to the house. Sometimes we do built-in furniture too. So something really interesting about the first episode that people will see is there's some built-in pieces that are genuine conversation. We'll call them conversation pieces to the home.
We can't give too much away.
Oh, I know. I'm not.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm just saying, like, there's conversation pieces there that you actually wouldn't take with you, right? And I think that adds the allure to that house and gives a character.
And over the years of all the houses that you've flipped, have you ever finished a project and said to yourselves, you know what? Let's not sell this. Let's just move in ourselves.
Have we done that?
Well, we've moved, I want to say 6 times in like 8 years. So, because
wow.
we flipped the houses that we live in, because why not? But we don't want to do that anymore. We're looking to stay. But I feel like there's been times where we go to flip a house and we think, oh, should we move in? No, we shouldn't. And then there's times that we say, okay, we're going to buy this and flip it, live in it for 2 years, and then move out and do it again. So we sort of done it. Yeah. Are
there projects in the future that you're working on that are similar yet dissimilar to what you're doing now? Things that you've picked up on during the course of your work that may have led you to do something else in life?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think that every single project that we do makes us bigger, stronger, better, faster, more experienced, all the rest of it. And, when it comes to whether it's construction or design or any of these elements that it takes to pull off a project, you always get better for the next one, right? And in saying that, right, when you go into construction, you say, okay, I'm going to frame up this wall, or I'm going to hang this drywall, or we're going to paint this a certain color because it covers faster than, maybe a beige covers faster than red. Every time you go and you do these things, when you do get stronger, when you do get better, of course, you have to carry that over to the next project. It'd be silly if you didn't. So yeah, we definitely grow and we definitely get better as a couple, as business people, as renovators and flippers, and maybe even TV hosts. Of course, we get better every episode.
Yeah. Now, is there any chance that sometime in the future you might decide, okay, let's start off another branch of business here where we build communities, where we don't flip houses, but we start from scratch, build a house from scratch? Or you're not interested in starting from scratch?
I have done some new construction in the past, and Keeks designed them. So, I mean, in terms of like purpose-built rental, I've built purpose-built rental before in a single-family home, semi-detached, multifamily space. So, I mean, that's a whole other animal. I mean, instead of flipping a house, which is an existing product on an existing lot with existing water, sewer, hydro hookups, I mean, all of that, you're going in and you're cosmetically renovating kind of what's already there, whereas new construction, yeah, you're going in and you're saying, okay, blank canvas, here's the dirt. What are you going to do with it? Right. So yes, we've been in that situation too.
Yeah. There's a real trend, and it has been begun in the last few years with laneway homes and with tiny homes. Have you worked on laneway homes, or have you done any of those little 900 square foot homes? Or 900, some of them are 300 square foot homes.
Actually.
Oh.
I'll do you one better. I did a 253 square foot tiny home.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a legal one. So legal, it's got its own property and everything. And you couldn't build it for how much we bought it for. It's a unique story. Do you want to tell it?
It is a unique story, but I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I could paraphrase it, I guess. Basically, I bought a property with 2 houses on it. I'd split the lot. And in saying that, we ended up with the main house on one lot and this tiny house, which was a 253 square foot, little baby house on its own lot. We made it really cute. I mean, Keek nailed the design on it. My team nailed the construction on it. I was the project lead and just made sure everything had to be where it was supposed to go. And
then we had stagers for that one.
We did have stagers.
They made it really, really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
We lucked out with that one because it was grandfathered in, that it had its own address and its own water and its own electrical.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the only way that could have happened. But Ryan severed it. And because he was able to sever it legally, it was the only tiny home that ever came on the market with its own land, its own property.
Wow.
Yeah.
Could you see yourself living in a 258 square foot home?
I find, though, our life is so adventurous that if we sold everything and moved into one, I wouldn't be surprised. I think I'm pretty much up for anything.
Well, we might be seeing it on HGTV somewhere down the road. In the meantime, you can see Ryan and Kiki. They are one of 3 sets of renovators on Hoarder House Flippers, available to you on HGTV Thursdays at 8 p.m. It's a fascinating concept and a really entertaining show, and I thank you both very much for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Ted.
The Ted Wallacham podcast has been brought to you by Halenda's, the meat people. Enjoy their award-winning products at selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortinos, and Foodland locations. Halenda's, the way sausage should taste. And Tom's Place. For the finest in men's clothing at unbeatable prices, it's Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. Tom's Place will suit you. The Ted Wallacham podcast is produced by Joey Roselli. Technical production by Paul Gatt. Music by Bike Thieves. I'm Becky Coles. Submit your questions and comments to ted@twmedia.ca.